Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off talking about the game formerly known as Bloodborne Kart, and that's Nightmare Kart. And Nightmare Kart was supposed to release on, well, today. So at the time of filming, if you head on over to Steam, there's no more date of May 31st. It's been replaced with coming soon, and there's no release date. However, this may just be a Steam thing. I mean, if you head on over to itch.io, Nightmare Kart has been released. It's available for Windows, and if you're curious about it, I'll drop a link to it in the description below. It's 224 megabytes. Next up, we're quickly talking about ESDE, which stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or Emulation Station Desktop Edition, depending on how you want to interpret that. Anyways, there's a small update here that is kind of big for the Android version of this. It's now available on the Samsung Galaxy Store. If you remember, a little while back, ESDE Android was trying to get on the Google Play Store but couldn't. And now it is on the Samsung Galaxy Store and at a price of $8.16. Next up, we're talking about MAME, which stands for Multiple Arcade Machine Emulator, or possibly something else. I can't put my finger on it. Anyways, MAME version 0.266 just dropped. As per usual, there's a whole bunch of bug fixes and improvements. For example, they say that Title F3 video emulation has been re-implemented, fixing numerous long-standing graphical issues. And this one is super interesting. They say, speaking of sound, a previously missing Game Boy Advance sound channel is now emulated. In addition to that, there's a whole bunch of games now listed as working, including a number of different versions of the Eye of Typhoon for the Neo Geo. And on a quick side note, MAME for Droid 2024 has been updated with this latest version of MAME, version 0.266. Next up, we're quickly talking about multi-system emulator Emulicious. This emulator is written in Java. It works with pretty much any system that supports Java. And it's a multi-system emulator that works with the Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Sega Master System, Game Gear, MSX, and MSX2. So this latest update has a number of bug fixes and optimizations. For example, they say they've made the key shortcuts for toggle full screen and toggle turbo configurable. Moving on, and we're talking about Discord alternative Guilded, and this is a very weird strategy. Apparently they've paired up with Roblox, and you now need a Roblox account to log into Guilded. So according to the announcement, users who created a Guilded account before May 30th, which is, I think most people, will have until July 15th to create a Roblox account, or at least link their Roblox account to Guilded. Now, if you're like me and wondering why in the heck did they do this, here is their response. Connecting Guilded and Roblox accounts lays a foundation that will help us to better serve and grow our communities today, as well as reach new audiences around the world. I don't necessarily agree with that statement, but let's see how this plays out. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Moving on, and this one is a very interesting one. We're talking about Toys for Bob, the studio behind Crash Bandicoot and also Spyro. They've announced they're partnering with Xbox to publish their next new game. They say they're still very early on in development, so you might not hear from them for a bit, but know they're working hard on an experience they're so inspired about. I am very curious about this one. I'm wondering if it's going to be an exclusive or not. I mean, with Microsoft's recent stance on not having exclusives, I'm hoping this is a good thing. Let me know your thoughts about this one. And speaking about Crash Bandicoot, next up we're talking about a brand new Crash Bandicoot mod for the PlayStation 1, and this is a quality of life mod. So the developer of this patch has a YouTube video showing it off, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below. They say Crash 1 can now be played with the quality of life changes its successors received. Now the game can be enjoyed to its fullest without the frustration of having to play each level deathless. If you are curious about this one, the description of this video has the link to the patch. The patch is on MediaFire, so use caution. I do wish this hits romhacking.com or romhacking.net in the near future, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Next up, we're talking about some Linux stuff, and we'll start out with Linux Lite. So Linux Lite just released version 7.0. It's based on Ubuntu 24.04 LTS and XFCE 4.18. Linux Lite is meant to be easy to use and lightweight, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below. It's 100% free and open source. Next up, we're talking about System 76, and the highly anticipated Darter Pro laptop has just launched. This features an Intel Core Ultra 5 or Ultra 7, up to 9 hours of battery life, up to 8 terabytes of storage, up to 96 gigs of RAM, and it comes in 14 or 16-inch sizes. The initial launch of this seems to have been very successful. System76 CEO says the new Darter Pro is here and nearly sold out. Demand was much higher than anticipated. More stock is on the way. And then the CEO says because we ran out of the Darter Pro stock before it was officially released, we've extended the $100 off pre-order sale. New stock is arriving the week of July 20th. If you are curious about this one, I will be reviewing a Darter Pro. System76 has agreed to temporarily send me one for review. So next week you should be seeing some videos that have been recorded, edited, rendered, and uploaded from a Darter Pro. And speaking about Linux purpose-built laptops with Intel Core Ultra CPUs, next up we're talking about Framework. And Framework has just announced the Laptop 13 with Intel Core Ultra Series 1 processors. So the Framework 13 is 13.5 inches, and there's another version here. If you didn't like Intel, you can pick it up with an AMD Ryzen 7040. Framework has a pretty cool option here because they do have the pre-built and they do have a DIY edition. So with this DIY edition, you effectively build it yourself. And one of the big themes behind the Framework laptop is basically freedom to do what you want with it. Now this can run Windows, you can pick it up with Windows pre-installed on it, but I would argue this is a very good laptop for Linux. I'm curious to know your thoughts about Framework. I'm a big fan of how modular everything is and the concept here. Next up, this is a quick one, and for Linux users, specifically those using kernel 6.8. If you are using 6.8, you may want to consider upgrading to 6.9. 6.8 has reached end of life. Alternatively, you can hop on an LTS kernel version. Next up, this one's super quick and I would argue super cool. Someone obtained a Game Boy Advance cartridge with a Mega Drive Genesis emulator on it. I am not joking with you here. This is real and very weird. I'll drop a link to the full Twitter thread in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. To me, at least, it's a very entertaining and interesting story. The first thing this person did was dump the cartridge. And they also did a big teardown of it, and it's a very interesting little device. And speaking about the Sega Genesis, next up we're talking about jgenesis, which is a free and open source cross-platform multi-console emulator supporting a number of 8-bit and 16-bit gaming consoles, like the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, Sega CD, Sega Master System, Game Gear, NES, Super NES, and Game Boy. So at the time of filming, version 0.7.2 just dropped. And this version adds in some pretty big things, multiple save state slots and NES Zapper support. In addition to all of that, there's a whole bunch of fixes for a whole bunch of different systems. This is a pretty big release for this emulator. Moving on, and we're quickly talking about torzu, which is a Nintendo Switch emulator that has been forked from Yuzu. And torzu just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, 2024-531 is their latest update. They have fixed some VRAM leaks and Tears of the Kingdom crashes on the Steam Deck, and they have cherry-picked some changes from Sudachi for Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. At the time of filming, torzu is available for Windows, Mac, and Linux, but not Android. They say Android is not a priority, but it may get a release in the future, but who knows. Next up, we're talking about Sega Dreamcast emulation with Flycast, and Flycast has just got a brand new subreddit. On top of that, they're asking for some community support. Now, this subreddit has opened up about 2 months ago. I don't think it's the official subreddit. I could be wrong, and if I am, let me know in the comments below. But it does cover information about Flycast and also Flycast Dojo. Now, Flycast does have its own Discord where the developer is, and there's very up-to-date information. But at the same time here, if you are a Redditor, this may be something to check out. It's trying to have everything all in one place. And on top of that, over on the official Flycast Discord, the developer has just announced a brand new feature in the dev branch, and that is native force feedback support for arcade racing games that support it. F355, 18-wheeler, Initial D, Club Kart, King of Route 66, and Sega Driving Simulator. This is a huge new feature, especially if you like racing games. If you are curious about this one, Flycast is 100% free and open source, and I'll drop a link to their GitHub in the description below, and feel free to check it out. And last up here, we're talking about VIMMs Lair, and this is arguably not good news for VIMMs Lair. So VIMMs Lair recently had a DMCA from Nintendo. We talked about that one. It was for the box art and images for certain Nintendo games. And it appears that VIMMs Lair has been hit with another DMCA. I'll drop a link to the announcement in the description below, and this page has all of the previous correspondence regarding this matter. And they say, or Vim says, they received a follow-up notice today from mmnintendo.com correcting the wording and grammar of the original DMCA. And the original DMCA did not have downloads that infringe on copyrights, and this new DMCA apparently does. And Vim says the referenced downloads have been permanently removed. Now, as far as I know, this is a real DMCA from Nintendo to VIMMs Lair, and the specific downloads will not be returning. And I'm very curious as to how much Nintendo pays their lawyers versus their developers. With the activity I've seen this year, I would assume the lawyers from Nintendo are making quite a bit of money. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and one fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you liked this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.